This is Blind Ham News with stories of interest to blind and visually impaired hams. With today's report, here is Steve Bauer, W0QA.
On Thursday, June 19th, a very special commemorative broadcast took place. Steve Hemphill and the staff at the historic Alpine Tower in Alpine, New Jersey, celebrated with a commemorative broadcast, the 20th anniversary of the Armstrong Memorial event, which Hemphill originally organized in 2005 to honor the man who made FM radio possible, Edwin Armstrong. WA2XMN, the Armstrong Memorial Broadcast Station, returned to the air on June 19th to broadcast on 42.8 megahertz, Armstrong's original low-band frequency. During previous transmissions, its signal has been heard from as far as 100 miles away. Most police scanners can monitor the VHF low band, as do many software-defined radios. The tower, an original brick transmitter building, were finished in 1937 to aid in Armstrong's FM radio experiments. The call sign, WA2XMN, is still etched in concrete above the front door of Armstrong's original station building on the site today. The Alpine Tower staff have worked hard to preserve the history and site nestled in the Palisades of Bergen County, about 15 miles northwest of the Empire State Building. With hand-built vintage parts, Hemphill restored the Phasotron transmitter, running 250 watts of power output, feeding a Ringo vertical antenna mounted on the Alpine Tower at approximately 400 feet above ground level. Transmissions of the experimental station were in wide-band frequency modulation, using the same technical standards as modern FM broadcast stations. Although the Phasotron was not even invented yet when Armstrong began his broadcasts, the technology is approximately correct for the era. Special thanks to Patrick N2DYI, who was able to pick up the signal from the WA2XMN experimental transmitter on June 19th. Although the signal wasn't as good as he has heard from that station in the past, we'll still give you just a little bit of the audio and let you hear what they were talking about on the special memorial broadcast.
What I would like to do is to go to anyone who has their hands raised, and I would ask each person to identify themselves. And if you have an amateur call, you can give us that. I'm WB2TZL, the turquoise zombie lover. Folks, anybody have a question? And let's get started. Please identify yourself first.
Scott Feibush from Northeast Radio Watch and from Radio World. First of all, just thanks to Steve and to Mr. Sackerman and to everybody. It's just been magnificent. I've been working on a book about the early history of FM radio in New York City, and it's remarkable to me how well developed it was in the first few years. WOR, for instance, had its own completely separate FM studios, its own completely separate FM transmitter and programming. To what extent... anybody on the panel, do you think that the advent of the war got in the way? And if the war hadn't gotten in the way, to what extent might FM have really taken off on the low band before getting distracted by TV and by being kicked upstairs, as it were?
Would anyone like to address that?
I'll take a shot at it.
All right, Ren?
From my perspective, the war really stopped the manufacture of FM receivers. In fact, when I was working here, I had a hard time getting one because everything had stopped, and those that had been in dealers' places were no longer available. Other people had bought them. And I finally got, I think it was Meisner, a little tuner, and hooked it up to an amplifier. I might add that there was a reason for that, and that is the only way my mother knew that I'd gotten over here safely to work to these hours of 11 o'clock at night. Was by hearing my voice making the announcements on W2XMN and keeping the transmitter going and doing whatever else was left over from the day. That period of time, before they got this bright idea of changing, they remember the RCA people who were really largely responsible for moving the channels up, and Armstrong wrote some papers before the FCC and all, strongly objecting to this, but they literally had 4 or 5 years to figure out what their strategy was going to be. They very much wanted to stop FM in its tracks, not because they had the patent problems. Their real problem was that FM, particularly on the low band, could relay signals up and down, say up and down the East Coast. During my day here, we used to send signals all the way up to Mount Washington that could pick them up, and then station up beyond that to pick that up. And what did you have there? You had a new network. And one of RCA's big money makers was the two networks. They had the red and the blue network. And they did not want to see any new networks springing up, and crippling the AM band. And they succeeded in that they did get it moved. It's somehow, where it had been going like a bat out of hell, all of a sudden everything kind of stopped even after the war. And Armstrong had a few loyal companies that kept, like Zenith and all, kept building receivers. But it didn't really get going again.
Right.
And then television started.
And that's a taste of a little bit of history on the air. And now to wrap up this edition of the Blind Ham News podcast, we have a fun ham radio song. Thanks to Johnny, NE5L, for finding this on Facebook and forwarding it to us. Here is Richard Langford, N8SDR. He is from Ohio. This song is called Bottom Cycle Blues, and he wrote it and he sings it.
The sun is screamed with a vicious cry. Now X-class flares dance through the sky. HF's dead, the bands are bare. No waves to ride, no signals out there. X-class flares making solar violence that trash the bands with blackout silence. No radio waves pass through the air. There will be no field day stories to compare. So grab your drinks and forget about the sun's corona light. We'll toast the moon all through the night. Antennas stand like ghostly trees. No signals heard from overseas. No CQ calls, no decode names. The ether's quiet, no radio games. The X-class flares silence the radio air. No field day stories to compare. So grab your drinks and forget about the sun's corona light. We'll toast the moon all through the night. Morse code dreams fade with the glow of Aurora's dance, putting on a show. The contest waits, but the sun doesn't care. It laughs and makes a static noise heard on the air. You spin the dials, but no one's around. No friends, no digital chatter, just a buzzing sound. We'll laugh instead and let it slide. These X-class flares are a cosmic ride. X-class flares making solar runs that trouse the bands with blackout silence. No radio waves pass through the air. There will be no field day stories to compare. So grab your drinks and forget about the sun's corona light. We'll toast the moon all all through the night. All through the night. Morse code dreams fade with the glow of Aurora's dance putting on a show. The contest waits, but the sun doesn't care.
Have a story or information to submit for the podcast? Send it by email to blindhamnews@gmail.com or call 662-426-6397. That's 662-HAM-NEWS. Thanks for your help.
I'm Steve, W0QA, and that's the report this time. I hope you can join me again for another Blind Ham News podcast. 73 and